Hello everyone, welcome to English class. Dear students, as you know that we have been reading chapter number 5 from the book It So Happened. Name of the lesson is Princess September. Okay, and we have covered part 1 of this lesson, and this is a very beautiful story about the king of Siam and his 9 daughters. And the king was having very strange habit as to gave gift on his birthday instead of receiving. So king on one birthday, king gifted to his every daughter a parrot in a golden cage, and the youngest daughter, named September, lost her parrot very soon, as one day she found it was lying dead at the bottom of the cage, and so she became very sad. Later on, when she was crying and crying, a new bird entered into her room, and which that particular bird sang many beautiful songs for different persons, right? As is, and now the bird became her pet bird. So, what happened next? I am going to read on the page number 37, the last para which we have read. The princesses were vexed at this, and the parrot looked very glum indeed. But Princess September ran through all the rooms of the palace, singing like a lark, while the little bird flew round and round her, singing like a nightingale. Means what happened then? As she told about her birth to everyone, to king and the queen also, then king and queen became very happy as he was able to sing different songs rather than God save the king and pretty Polly. So that was the beautiful thing about the bird. And upon hearing this, the king was uh, getting tired of listening these two things. So upon hearing this, the princesses got annoyed and the parrots got depressed. Princess September, on the other hand, roamed all around the palace, visiting all rooms while she sang like a lark, and the bird flew round and round her. The bird, on the other hand, sang like a nightingale. Right, so page number 37, next para. Things went on like this for several days, and then the 8 princesses put their heads together. They went to September and sat down in a circle round her. My poor September, they said, we are sorry for the death of your beautiful parrot. It must be dreadful for you not to have a pet bird as we have. So we have all put our pocket money together, and we are going to buy you a lovely green and yellow parrot. So here is the phrase put their heads together, and the phrase means discussed amongst themselves to take a decision. Okay, and next word is dreadful, which means terrible. So for several days, for different days, the situation in the palace remained somewhat like this only. The other 8 princesses thought about it and strategized. They went to see Princess September and sat around her in a circle. They expressed their grief over the death of the poor September's parrot. They said that she must be feeling terrible for not having a pet bird like all her sisters. They told her that they have pooled their pocket money to be able to buy her a lovely green and yellow parrot. Means they all were telling her that we will buy a new parrot for you. Thank you for nothing, said September. I have a pet bird which sings the most charming songs to me, and I don't know what on earth I should do with a green and yellow parrot. So here is the phrase thank you for nothing means dismissive way of telling something that they were no help at all, or it is as empty of gratitude as the speaker thinks the offer of help is of no use. Right, so thank you for nothing means indirectly you are not accepting the offer of the giver, right? So Princess September found their offer of no use, and thus she said thank you for nothing. She further added that she does have a pet bird who sings the most beautiful and melodious songs for her. In fact, she not know what she would do with a green yellow parrot, right? Well, my dear, they said, it's absurd to talk of your bird when the little fellow flies in and out just as he likes. They looked around the room and raised their eyebrows. So, what they have told here is the word absurd, which means inappropriate, right? So the other sisters suggested that it was inappropriate to talk about her little bird when he comes and goes as he likes. They looked around the room to find him, and when they couldn't, okay, they raised their eyebrows, they looked around the room, and they were searching for the bird. Next, on the page number 38, do you mind our asking where your bird is now? They said. He has gone to pay a visit to his father-in-law, said Princess September. And what makes you think he will come back? Asked the princesses. He always does come back, said September. Well, my dear, said the eight princesses, if you will take our advice, you won't run any risk like that. If he comes back, and mind you, if he does, you will be lucky. Pop him into the cage and keep him there. That's the only way you can be sure of him. So now in this way they are just putting all the efforts to put the bird into cage, because they all become jealous of the bird, right? And because of the bird, the king scolded and not appreciated the parrots. So that's why they all came in her room, and they were telling against the bird, right? As they didn't find the bird into the room, then what she said, do you mind our asking where your bird is now? They said. So they looked around the room to find him, and when they couldn't, they asked September about his whereabouts. Princess September told them that he had gone to visit his father-in-law. The other eight tried to fill September's mind with doubt and asked her what, according to her, will draw him back. Means, do you think he will come back? Right? Then Princess September was so sure that he would come back because he always does. They tried to advise her upon not taking any risk like that. They told her to lock him and keep him in a cage if he ever comes back, right? They specifically mentioned that she would be very lucky if he does. Means if he will come back, that he she would be very lucky, right? He will be very lucky, and the only way she can be sure of his possession is by putting him in a cage. Means roaming freely is not a good thing. It must be in the particular bird must be in the cage. That's the only way you can be sure of him, by putting into the cage. Only then it will be very sure thing that he will never go again anywhere. But I like to have him fly about the room, said the young Princess September. Safety first, said her sisters ominously. They got up and walked out of the room, shaking their heads, and they left September very uneasy, right? There's a word ominously which means threateningly, or you can say suggesting that something bad was about to happen. So they try to advise her upon not taking any risk like that. So they told her to lock him and keep him in a cage if he ever comes back. They specifically mentioned that she would be very lucky if he does. Then, and the only way she can be sure of his position is by putting him in a cage. On that, Princess September expresses her concern and tells her sister that she likes to have him fly around the room. They left the room as they shook their heads, leaving Princess September alone and feeling very uneasy. Uneasy means she was not comfortable then, because they put doubt in her mind. On next page, page number 39. It seemed to Princess September that her little bird had been away a long time. Something might have happened to him. What with hawks and with snares, you never knew what trouble he might get into. Besides, he might forget her, or he might take a fancy to somebody else. That would be dreadful. She wished he were safely back again. So here is the next page para. And dear students, some name of the birds are here, different words are here. Hawks, which is a bird of prey with broad rounded wings and a long tail, and typically taking prey by surprise with a short chase, right? It can eat that bird. And then there is snares, traps for catching birds or animals. Okay. And then here is the word fancy, which means feel a desire or liking for. Then dreadful again, and means severe or suffering extremely bad or serious, right? So after some time, Princess September noticed that it has been quite long since her little bird left. She began worrying that something unfortunate must have happened to him with all the hawks and traps that are out there for the little birds. She even began thinking of the possibilities of him forgetting about September, or that he might develop a liking for somebody else. How terrible it would be, she thought to herself. She only wished for him to come back to her safely. Means the, her sisters told him, put the doubts, and now she was starting doubts. Now she was starting doubts on bird. Suddenly, September heard a tweet tweet just behind her ear, and she saw the little bird sitting on her shoulder. He had come in so quietly and alighted so softly that she hadn't heard him. Here is the picture of the September. Here is the bird who was sitting on her shoulder, and she was very surprised as the bird came from behind and sat there, right? So alighted here, came down. A Princess September was thinking about the bird, and she suddenly heard a tweet tweet from behind her ear. She found the little bird sitting on her shoulder, and he had come in so softly and without making a sound that she couldn't sense him sitting on her shoulder. I wondered what on earth had become of you, said the princess. Then the princess was showing her concern. The princess told the bird that she was worried about him. Okay, so and she was wondered and she was surprised and she was thinking, she was worried. What on earth had become of you? Means what had happened to you? I thought you would wonder that, said Little Bird. The fact is, I very nearly didn't come back tonight at all. My father in law was giving a party and they all wanted me to stay, but I thought you would be anxious. Under the circumstances, this was a very unfortunate remark for the little bird to make. September felt her heart go thump against her chest, and she made up her mind to take no more risk. Risk. So the birds, on the other hand, expressed that he was afraid that the princess would be worried, and that was the reason he came back. Right? He told her that he almost didn't come back that night because his father-in-law was hosting a party and no one wanted him to leave, but he came back only because he knew September would be worried. Now she was very at that moment when Princess September's mind was filled with doubt already, it was very unlucky on behalf of the bird to have made that statement. She felt her heartbeat getting faster and she decided to not to be exposed to any type of risk. Right, here is the word uh, go heart go thump, which means if your heart thumps, it beats more strongly and quickly than usual because of exercise, fear, or excitement, right? So that time she felt her heartbeat getting faster and she decided to not to be exposed to any type of risk. Okay, she put her hand and she put her hand and took hold of the bird. The bird was suspected nothing, and he was so surprised when she carried him over to the cage, popped him in, and shut the door on him. That for a moment he could think of nothing to say, but in a moment or two he hopped up to the very ivory perch and said, "That's what's the joke? Okay, here is the cage, here is the Princess September, and here is the bird, and Princess September putting the bird into the cage." So she got hold of the bird in her hand, right, and took him towards the cage. At first, the bird didn't suspect a thing, but upon seeing the cage, he was shocked. September put him in the cage and locked him. At that time, the bird couldn't understand what was happening, but in a moment or two, he got into his senses, jumped onto the ivory perch. Perch means the place where they sit down. So he was jumped on there and asked September what was going on, right, and what was the joke, what was going on. "There's no joke," said September, "but some of mama's cats are prowling about tonight, and I think you are much safe in there." "Well, just for this once I don't mind," said the little bird, "so long as you let me out in the morning." So here is the word prowling, which means move about restlessly and sleathily, especially in search of prey. So here the cats were prowling there. Okay, so he thought it was some jokes she was playing with him. September told him that it was no joke and that she was worried about him, as her mother's cat were supposed to be roaming around that night in search of prey. The bird agreed to stay inside the cage for only this time, with the condition that she would have to let him out the next morning, right? So he was there only for one night only, and he was thinking like this. He ate a very good supper and then began to sing, but in the middle of his song he stopped. "I don't know what's the matter with me," he said, "but I don't feel like singing tonight." "Very well," said September, "go to sleep instead." So he put his head under his wings and in a minute was fast asleep. September went to sleep too, but when the dawn broke, she was awakened by the little bird calling her at the top of his voice. So the next morning, what happened? The bird had a very fulfilling evening meal and began singing. He expressed that he didn't feel like singing that night because he was in the cage. September had no problem with that, and rather she advised him to go to sleep instead. So thus that night he didn't sing properly. So thus he put his head under his wings and went to sleep in about a minute. September too went to sleep. So here next morning, right, but when the dawn broke, dawn means the first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. So at sunup she was forced to wake up by the voice of the bird, who was calling her in his loudest voice. Wake up," he said. "Open the door of his cage and let me out. I want to have a good fly when the dew is still on the ground." So dew means tiny drops of water that form and cool surfaces at night when atmospheric vapor condenses. And in nowadays you also can observe dew outside your home, and it is a very beautiful and yes, very uh, beautiful thing to see and to feel, right? So what happened, he was asking her to wake up and let him out of the cage so that he could have a good fly before the dew disappeared from the ground. "But you are much better off where you are," September. But September told him that by staying in the cage he was at an advantage. Let me out," said the little bird, and he tried to slip through the bars of the cage, but of course couldn't. And he beat against the door, but of course he couldn't open it. Then the eight princesses came in and looked at him. They told September she was very wise to take their advice. They said he would soon get used to the cage and in a few days would quite forget he had ever been free. The little bird said nothing at all while they were there, but as soon as they were gone, he began to cry again, "Let me out, let me out." So as the bird was into the cage and the princess was not ready to let him out, then the bird again saying again and again, the bird asked her to let him out. He even tried to slip out of the bars but failed. He even beat against the door, but the door didn't open. Meanwhile, the eight princesses came in, and as they looked at the bird inside the cage, they appreciated September for taking their advice. So they even told her that it was only a matter of days till he got used to the cage, and when he would completely forget about his freedom. Okay, and that time the tiny bird remained quiet in front of the eight sisters, but when they went out, he began crying for his freedom. Let me out, because he didn't remain in the, he was not able to, or you can say it was not his life to remain in the cage, because as he fly around and when he observe the beauty, when he enjoys the beauty, only then he would be able to sing. And that's why he was telling again and again, "Please let me out." So today we will read till here only. Thank you so much.